Hello guys, and welcome back to another video, and today we will be looking at a scenario where the strongest countries in Africa go to war with the rest of the continent. So who I would consider the strongest, I'd say Egypt, South Africa, I'd say Nigeria, Ethiopia, by military probably Morocco, but by total strength I'd say Algeria's next, then the DRC and Morocco. The DRC has some issues, but they have a large population and they're a bit of a regional power. So these are the countries I'm going to be having: Egypt, Ethiopia, South Africa, the DRC, Nigeria, Algeria, and Morocco, not counting Western Sahara. No other countries will be allowed to be involved. Some of them may supply these countries, but most of the support will probably go to the red team as they're the more industrialized powers. So let's go ahead and begin, and the red team will have the immediate advantage here as they will begin to push out. In real life, Morocco already has a lot of Western Sahara. Also, I know, yes, Spain controls some things over here. France controls some things over here. Honestly, I just didn't want to go through and make sure that every tiny island is colored incorrectly. So this is half geographical and half political, with Egypt still having Sinai, which is technically in Asia, and some islands around Africa being on the blue team. Let's just assume they got independence. But as I said, Morocco already controls a lot of Western Sahara in real life, so they'd begin with this land. From there, they'd make a few landings, and we're going to count that island too, along with capitulating the rest of Western Sahara and beginning to push into Mauritania. Algeria would do the same, beginning to push into Sahara, although as you might expect, this is many Algerians losing their lives, although they are specially trained divisions for the desert. Still, nobody really cares about this as it has no point at all, whilst this push into Tunisia has a lot of point, and they managed to capture the relatively important North African country. From there, they begin to push into Libya, a very important country, but they managed to hold off the Algerians near Tripoli? I don't know, something like that. From there, Egypt begins to push into Libya as well, also using specially trained divisions, although they do it even less, and they begin to push down the Nile River into Sudan, along with down the coast. Never thought I'd say this, but Ethiopia and Egypt are looking to meet up to make a joint invasion of Sudan. They meet up along the coast. Meanwhile, Ethiopia is absolutely crushing the Somalis, the Eritreans, and the Djiboutins. These guys, none of them are that strong. As for their DRC, well, they're wiping their floor with the Congo, Gabon, and Equatorial Guinea, along with the Central African Republic. They begin to push into Angola and Zambia, but their militaries are a bit better, so they managed to hold off. Burundi and Rwanda fall, but along with a lot of Uganda, but Tanzania and South Sudan managed to hold the front for now. As for South Africa, well, they quickly wipe out Lesotho and Eswatini, and as I said, I'd probably put them in second place here, so they're going to start to push into all of their neighbors. No real strategy here, just push. South Africa's just looking to meet up with the DRC, but there's nothing particular going on here. South Africa has a nice isolated front right here, and they're going to use that to their advantage. As for Nigeria, they're also one of the most powerful. They have a massive population and a quickly growing economy. They are going to quickly capture Benin and Togo. My bad. And they had to make Togo had to go. You get it? There we go. Perfect. Togo had to go. Hilarious. Well, from there, they capture Burkina Faso and begin to push into the Ivory Coast, but they do meet some resistance with Mali as they are getting very far away from home. From there, Niger is not very far away from home, and Nigeria sees a lot more success pushing into all of their important lands. From there, Niger is now just Sahara Desert and other teams' troops protecting it. Nigeria pushes down the coast, meeting up with the DRC and practically capitulating Cameroon, while also beginning a large push into southern Chad. Of course, nobody could defeat Chad in real life, but sadly, I have to make this video unrealistic as this would not happen. And honestly, I don't know if the red team would make this much progress, but now they are facing the full might of the blue team. Anyway, South Africa could defeat all of Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Madagascar in real life on their own, so they're going to continue to have a lot of success. You might say, well, Zambia and Angola and Malawi, what do you call a person from Malawi? Well, whatever you call that, and Tanzanian troops would also be there. No, they're not. They're protecting their own borders. They are not getting any help. all the blue team countries are facing their own problems, and South Africa is absolutely rolling over these southern African countries. Meanwhile, the DRC is struggling a bit, okay? They are getting pushed back, especially in East Africa. And I have to set my tolerance down. They are getting pushed back, especially over here in East Africa, where the blue team even starts their first invasion into a not important, yet still an area of one of the African powers. Honestly, the DRC is not very stable. I shouldn't even have included them, but they're just so large and so many people live there that maybe eventually they'll turn into an African power. Although, I'm not sure about that. I just wanted to add in one more country. So the DRC is struggling is the point here. Meanwhile, Ethiopia is not. They have wiped out Somalia with absolute ease. They're struggling on the Kenyan front, but South Sudan and Sudan are both crumbling as well. If you're wondering why the Kenyan front, well, a lot of East Africa's divisions are here, as the blue team sees this as a region to protect. They also see Sudan as a region to protect and begin to push back around there. With, well, the main blue team forces being stationed something like this, all across the border with Ethiopia and Egypt, and over here across the DRC. So they stop right about there. These are East African borders. They then quickly push up into Chad to protect the important regions and push out back into Sudan. When it comes to going south, well, practically stop at the Mozambique border, except going into a bit of the north. From there, what is Angola and Namibia doing, along with Zambia? Well, they're going to make their own defense, as the East Africans refuse to help them. And Libya, well, Libya's just trying to survive here. They're just holding on to their coast as well as they can. And as for West Africa, well, they're actually trying to survive and thrive, as they have ambitions to take back land from Namibia. That's just a bit of what the blue team fronts look like. The red team, well, they're not holding many fronts, except for maybe the DRC, who's actually getting blue team troops pushing into their territory. But besides that, all of these countries are pushing. A lot of the red team meets up with these front lines that I just showed you, which is why I just showed you them. And that allows Angola and what's left of Namibia to be cut off from the East African Federation, who retreats to the previously given areas. How's this going to go? Well, not great. Blue team just got split off into multiple pieces and lost a lot of land in southern Africa, but they weren't expecting to keep it anyways. From there, the East Africans continue to push back the DRC, who is now in absolute political turmoil. Many of the people there are threatening to rise up and start a full-on rebellion, and the red team is saying, why did we even get them in our team? They might have been better against us. And Nigeria is saying, why do I have to send troops to the DRC border? And everyone's just kind of mad at the DRC. The DRC says, hey guys, I'm trying, while the blue team continues to spearhead into the jungly part of the Congo, but hey, it's still land that the blue team's gaining. Meanwhile, over here with Ethiopia and Egypt, they decide that East Africa, well, they can't save the DRC. It's too late. Even if they did stop the blue team advance, political turmoil would get to them, and just poverty in general. A lot of these countries would fall, just completely collapse. But Egypt has been destroying Sudan, whilst a joint push with Algeria has capitulated Libya. From there, they swooped down and technically cut off the blue team, although they were as good as cut off before, since, once again, desert. And the blue team enacts their plan over here in West Africa, which surprisingly goes well, and they managed to recapture some land about as much as they wanted to. From there, the red team pushes back down into Mauritania, but the Mauritanians push back. With Western Saharan resistance, they begin to take back a lot of land. So yeah, we have a few major defenses. The blue team is pushing back into Chad, whilst the red team is pushing into Cameroon and the Central African Republic. The blue team sees no point in holding the Central African Republic, so they give that up. From there, they do see point in holding on to Chad, and at this point, the red team doesn't actually do anything to gain this land, but they are pretty much given control over all of the Libyan desert and a lot of the Sudanese and Chad deserts, as there are 0 divisions there and nobody wants to hold it. So now the red team holds all the deserts. Great, that's done nothing for you except look good on a map. This really just shows you the instability of these countries, but hey, South Africa and Egypt kind of carry in here. From there, Nigeria decides, okay, you know what, DRC, I'm not sending in any more divisions, you're on your own. I'm pushing into West Africa, and that goes pretty well. A lot of these weaker countries quickly capitulate, and now West Africa is falling back, to say the least, as Morocco is starting their own advance once more. Yeah, they're not looking too great. You know who else isn't looking too great? The DRC. My one red team country that I think is gonna die here. Yeah, East Africa has completely capitulated them. The DRC surrenders. As for this is not just the blue team doing this. This is with just the massive rebellion that just took place there. So now the blue team can push out from the DRC and capture a lot of land. That's good for them, but everywhere else it's going terribly. We now see them attempt to push back Ethiopia, and they push back Nigeria a lot, almost to the Nigerian border and up into Chad and Sudan. If you're wondering where the red team army was, well, it was over here wiping out the resistance in West Africa, and now this is what the fronts look like. The blue team decides that this is an impossible front to hold, at least for them, and they decide to set up something looking like this. Give me a second here. So they are going to attempt to hold on to a lot of their land, but give up a bit of the deserts in the north. In the south, Namibia is lost, but Zambia can still be captured, and Mozambique is also lost. No more point in protecting it. Same thing with Madagascar. Neither side has the largest navy, but the red team definitely has the better one, with South Africa's navy in the region taking full control. With that, South Africa continues to push in, but eventually meets this large blue team resistance as Angola is being resupplied heavily. It would most likely end in a stalemate near here. Let me just finish up getting to that stalemate. And right about here, we have it. The red team would most likely eventually win this, just due to them having way less issues. The DRC in this scenario has capitulated to form a bit of a Central African resistance. But let's go ahead and draw in somewhat a peace treaty, I guess, and show you what could have happened here. The DRC is going to lose land. I'm just calling them in like that because it makes it a lot easier to draw in the borders when everything isn't completely different. So yeah, the DRC here is not looking great. They're going to get completely divided up. Who are they going to get divided up by? Well, Angola gets a good amount of decently important land. They get the entirety of the DRC's coastline and a good amount of their central land, especially down here in the south. Same thing with Zambia, a lot of southern land. And over here, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania form the East African Federation, the EAF. South Sudan is excluded, but hey, they still got something. And they take some land for their own. I don't even know if they'd want this, but they're gonna get it. Because, well, you want a war, you're gonna get some land. As for Sudan and South Sudan, well, I'll come to them in a second. The rest of this is either gonna be given to the Central African Federation, who'd most likely dissolve at some point here. But for now, we're gonna assume that they somehow survived, and that they're gonna get a bunch of land that they cannot hold on to. As for the rest of the DRC, well, it's gonna go over to the Republic of the Congo, and they're going to form up the Congo. Just not the Republic of the Congo, not the Democratic Republic of the Congo, just the Congo. See, I'm just punishing the DRC quickly here, and then we can see what land the African powers have taken. Also, we are very close to 600 subs. Honestly, I was planning not to post until then, but you know what? It's been long enough. I've got to start posting. Cannot not post of the nots. Alright, here we go. Zambia enlarging EAF, the large African power. If I did this a second time, they would be considered one of the powers. Great for them, but nobody cares because this is already unrealistic. All these countries would not work together on both sides I don't have perfect African relations, and I'll admit that because I focus a lot more on European and American, but this is a video centered around Africa, so you kind of need to know about them. Yeah. Once again, the Central African Republic would most likely either fall, just completely capitulate, they might find themselves a new government, you know, if they get lucky. As for the true losers now, these are the new borders with the first sector of the treaty, I guess, stating what would happen to the DRC. From there, it's time for the second part of the treaty. What would the other powers gain? Well, they'd gain quite a considerable amount of land, if I do say so myself. South Africa themselves will be expanded into a major nation. Not that they weren't already, but now, I don't know if they would be stronger than Egypt with this. I don't know if this would be enough. I'd have to check. But they're gonna gain themselves a lot of land, including all of Madagascar. So yeah, good job, South Africa. And as for the rest of this, well, it's most likely going to be divided up by the neighbors, with Zambia getting a lot of it. Zambia were actually gonna turn into a decently powerful country here. They're gonna get a lot of the land, so they're gonna gain a lot of the strength. As for Northern Mozambique, that goes to the new EAF. Along with a bit of Somalia, that doesn't go to Ethiopia. As for the rest of Somalia, it goes to Ethiopia, along with all of Djibouti and Eritrea. As for South Sudan, well, they lose some land to the Ethiopians, but mainly the Sudanese lose land to the Ethiopians, along with the Ethiopians taking all of Eritrea, giving themselves a fairly large coastline. As for the Egyptians, they take about what they always take, but first let's see what they take from Libya. A whole lot of the coastal land. Wow, Libya, that's already going to cripple you as a country. As for Sudan, well, they're going to be even more crippled as Egypt pushes down the Nile and down the coast. Yeah, Sudan here. Not looking great. As for Algeria, well, they're going to look beautiful here, as I'm going to expand them into the Sahara. This is all completely useless land, but Algeria doesn't care. This will make them the largest country in Africa and one of the largest in the world. Not that they aren't already. They're already a fairly large country. Largest in Africa by most standards. And this is just going to make them even larger. From there, they're going to annex all of Tunisia and a bit of northern Libya, but not all of it will be taken, so that Libya can continue to exist as a country. Otherwise, it would just be too weak. Which, you know what, it probably won't be, but I'll show you that in a second. As for Morocco, well, they'll get all of the coastal land they could dream of. Just kidding, they wouldn't even get all of Western Sahara. Morocco here, they just didn't get what they wanted. Everyone else just kind of told them no whenever they asked for anything, and now they don't even have all of Western Sahara. So that's sad for them, but last up is Nigeria here, who annexes all of Togo, Benin, Ghana, Burkina Faso, some lands out of the Ivory Coast, some land out of Mali, and all of the land that's left from Niger. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it. They then begin to push down into Chad and into Cameroon, who they don't take all the land from, but they do take a fair amount of coastal land. And now let's go ahead and color out anything that wasn't completely annexed by one of the red team members, just to show you about what's left of Africa that isn't under their influence, as quite a bit of it is. So yeah, the African powers here have really come out on top through just some more advanced equipment, maybe better logistics, more funding from other world powers. Any of that stuff can really be beneficial in a war. Pretty necessary. And, well, the blue team here really just didn't have that. They also didn't have a whole lot of stability. Not all countries in the red team did. Some of them had a bit of infighting. Morocco, Algeria. But besides that, they have come out on top, the red team. And besides for the DRC, they have all gained. So let's go and finish drawing in these borders so I can end this video. The West African Federation will be formed up between all of these countries. We're basically just going to attempt to form up a fairly powerful state that can rival those of the victors of this war, which it's crippled, so probably can't, but you know what, they're trying. As for the rest of Niger, Libya, Chad, and no, not Sudan. Now actually, let's just give what's left of Niger to Chad, because Chad's face is already ruined. Nothing we can do about it anymore. We can then show any other lands that were gained by the blue team, which really the EAF came out very strong from this. They went from just an idea and a bit of a coalition to a thriving country with a terrible economy, terrible standard of living, a nice population, and a decent power on the African continent. Ethiopia also went from no coastline to one of, if not the largest in Africa. Good job there, Ethiopia. Now it looks like you might be renamed to the Horn of Africa now, as you control a lot of it. Might even go after Yemen. I did that in my... Wait, no, I probably deleted that video. Yeah, I didn't do so great. But there's Ethiopia done. We can call them out now. Egypt probably isn't getting as much as some of the other powers, but they get some quite useful land from Libya and from Sudan. So they got good land, except for some desert. Egypt's doing fine. Egypt is doing fine. Look at Algeria. They got way more land than Egypt, but Egypt probably got the better deal since they got some very important lands in northern Libya, down the Nile in Sudan, or on the coast of Sudan. Thus, Algeria got a whole lot of desert from all of their southern neighbors, and the largest land grab they probably got when it comes to importance, it's sad to say this, but it's probably Tunisia and northern Libya. This massive piece of land to the south is not that important, and that is just the truth. Sad, but it's the truth. Still, Algeria, massive country now. Might just be renamed to Sahara considering how much of the desert they own. Their situation with Morocco might be a bit better from this, since they just fought a war together. But honestly, I can say they might just fight a war between the powers right after the Great African War ended. As for Nigeria, well, they're getting a whole lot of land from a whole lot of countries. They're already the most populous country in Africa. Well, at this point, they might already be one of the most in the world. They already are in the world, and within a few decades, they are considered to surpass the US in population and take the number 3 spot away from the United States. They will most likely just like forever be behind China and India. China's is stabilizing, if not dropping, whilst India's is catapulting right now. So there's no real way of knowing how that's going to turn out. But, well, actually, I want to do one more thing, one more unification here. South Sudan and Sudan to just form Sudan. Because Sudan really needs it, and South Sudan really wants it. Cameroon, they're going to have to do something here. They're too weak right now. They'll probably just unite with some of these countries. And if you're saying, oh, but they're completely different countries, oh, but they'd never work out together. You know what I say to that? I say these countries already don't work out together because of what the because what the Europeans did to the poor countries. So yeah, that's my reasoning for all of this. That's why this can be done, and that's why they'll just have to survive. Because they're getting land, and stop complaining, you really need the land. Honestly, I might unite with the Congo to form the real Central African Federation, but that is a completely different thing, and I don't really know if that would happen. They are already called the Central African Federation, but this is a much more powerful one. If it united with Sudan, it would be an African power. Although not very original names, you know, East African Federation, Central African Federation. At this point, next thing, there's a West African Federation as well. All that's left is a North African Federation because there's South Africa. But hey, there we go. As we were talking, Nigeria's gotten their land. So has, Nigeria, Algeria, and Morocco. Morocco also got these islands, which Spain wouldn't like, but Spain, you can't do anything about it, too bad. And as for this last land, well, South Africa is really going to live up to the name and take over all of South Africa, while doing what we all want them to do and annexing Lesotho and Eswatini to make the map look 10 times better. Americans also like this map because a bunch of African countries just died, and now half the land is named by its position on the African continent. So all those Americans who don't know geography, well, that's going to make it a whole lot easier for you. From there, just going to finish up drawing in some of these borders from countries that cannot exist anymore, so they unite with another one. And I think we're about to finish. We also see Zimbabwe and Zambia forming up the Zimbabwe. No, what did I call it last time? Zimbabwe? Okay. You know what? We'll just call this Zambia. Zimbabwe. That's what I call it. Zimbabwe. Sure, that's its name. Why not? Why not? Well, there we go. Africa. Africa's dead. They have a few major powers now who pretty much just rule the continent. If you'd like to see those, it is South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, the EAF, Nigeria, and Algeria. Morocco here kind of took a beating, and like I said, they couldn't take the land that they wanted. If you want to include secondary powers, you can also include the Western African Union, Morocco, and yeah, that's it. And then for third-tier powers, we have Sudan, Angola. The Congo's gonna die here, and so is Central Africa. So that's about what the world looks like. Africa has grown in influence, but that is solely because there are much less but much more powerful countries. This video has already been way too long, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.